Steps do you advocate for to make sure that their experience with the criminal justice system is a positive?
As to the first question, I'm not sure if there's a lot that we can do before they enter the criminal justice system, only because you can't really force someone to do something. Obviously, there's the probate court and mental petitions that can be filed. Really, those are the most severe cases, though. And we've had some cases come through Adult Protective Services when I was in private practice, too. So before they enter the criminal justice system, that's one of the areas that I want to learn about. I mean, is it making people more aware of the services that are available, what can be offered, what they might qualify for, you know, knowing that they can get the help and it's not going to lead them into, you know, we're going to report you to the police or something like that, so that they have a safe haven, I guess, is a great way to put it, is to getting the help that they need. As to, and I'm sorry, the second part of your question, because now I have forgotten.
How do we make sure that people with mental illness have their underlying issues addressed so they don't keep, as you alluded to,
Right.
cycling through the system?
And I think that that's what we've been trying to work on. When I'm meeting with individuals for arraignments, I'm having conversations with them about what's going on in their life that led them to where they are. Do they have mental health diagnosis? Do they have substance abuse issues? Are they homeless? What is their education level? Trying to learn about the person as a whole and trying to gauge if there are any mental health issues, because we see it a lot in our profession. We're kind of attuned to what to look for, at least to gauge if there is an issue there that we need to address. And I do know that we have, through the arraignment process, the magistrate has been good about asking community mental health to assess these individuals before they're released from jail, and ordering them to comply with any treatment plans. Now, that's hard to follow up on. If, say, someone is in there for a minor misdemeanor that doesn't involve jail time, they may not get an attorney for that, although I have been appointing attorneys in cases that ordinarily we wouldn't, because there are mental health issues. And so we try to start at that level at the jail. I do know there's been some pushback in that area, time-wise, of things happening. But then as the case progresses, the attorneys that I appoint are aware of the issues. I make them aware of the issues. There are some steps that they can take if there's competency issues or responsibility issues. And then we're running into issues with the state. If someone's deemed incompetent, the state doesn't have a bed for them to get them the treatment that they need. And that happened recently, where someone sat in jail until Judge Skipper finally said, I'm going to hold the state in contempt if they don't find this person a bed to get treatment. So I think us knowing what resources are available, knowing how the process works, knowing what to look for, and really the attorneys following through. Judge Skipper and Judge Doherty are very good, and they handle our criminal cases now, are very good about trying to make sure that the mental health component is being addressed.
So it's just about care.
It is about care, and there are some counties that have mental health treatment courts, and maybe in the future that's something that this county should definitely consider. I've seen great success with that in the Kalamazoo court when they started that, because it is a different level of services and need than a drug court or sobriety court. The needs are different, and the treatment programs are different. So that is one thing that I know us as attorneys have talked about in the past is, would the county ever be interested in trying to do something like that? So that's really what I was looking at and the things I was looking at when I applied for this position.
Thank you.
Commissioner Connor.
Thank you. Your answers are great, and I mean, I've learned a lot just listening to you answer these questions. I have one question. Do you foresee that it might be viewed that it could be a conflict of interest if you sit on that board and make decisions that might come?
It shouldn't, only because it shouldn't, only because I don't personally have a caseload. I only represent people at arraignment. Other attorneys represent from that point forward. And so I don't see any conflicts, and I don't think it should be viewed that way. I think it's more of having that legal aspect voice of what our clientele are looking for and need, and experiences that the attorneys have in helping those clients. But I don't think so. If I had a caseload, maybe, but I don't currently have a caseload anymore.
You don't see where if you were on the mental health board and you voted for a policy that might affect your office, that it might be viewed that way? I'm not saying I do, I'm just asking what you think.
Anything's possible, especially in this, climate and day and age. Anything's possible. I would hope not, if it's especially if it's a policy that's going to help the citizens of Berry County. Because that's what both offices are meant to do.
Thank you.
I'd like to expound on that, because that is a good question. I did sit on the mental health board for a year before we downsized the board of commissioners. And first of all, you don't get involved in individual client cases.
Right.
Two, the mental health authority board has a good conflict of interest policy. And I believe when I was on there was a couple of times where we voted on whether somebody should abstain, if there was a perception. But I would say the type of stuff that the mental health board deals with wouldn't affect the day-to-day operations.
Oh, I totally agree with that. She doesn't stand to gain anything personally, but I just was wondering about the perception out and you're absolutely right. Today, anything is possible.
Today, anything's possible.
I just wanted to ask you that before we made our decision.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ben.
Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Carrie, for the application. I don't have any questions, just a comment that I think that would be a benefit to have you on that board from a standpoint of having a different perspective on that board, different needs in the community, being able to assess some of that and bring that information to that board and allow them to even be better. So I think that's a good fit for the community and for you as well, so thank you.
Commissioner Parker.
Yes, I think it's a good fit. I think that it's very appropriate, and I'm excited about the asset that you're going to be to that committee. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Carrie, I see on the news this morning that Pine Rest is opening up urgent care.
I saw that.
The same day. Do you have any feelings where that might help us?
I think that would be amazing. I'll be honest. I know that was a long process to get that urgent care center. I've been following that story, and absolutely, because there are. And again, this is kind of the area where I'm not as knowledgeable as I would like to be, and that's why I wanted to be on the board. But if we have people who are arrested for a crime and they're acting irrationally and there's mental health issues, will we take them to the hospital and the hospital, no, they're fine. It's the hospital. It's not necessarily a specialized doctor or area that's screening that individual in that moment to see what really is going on. And so I'm very excited about that urgent care center. It would be amazing to have one everywhere, obviously, but we all know that mental health funding is really not where it needs to be. So, yeah, I was excited when I saw that, but that's definitely a need because, again, it's that specialized area of practice. These are people who don't need a Band-Aid. They need you to look into their brain and figure out what's going on with them.
I agree. I was excited when I heard it this morning, some of the good news on top of the bad. Thank you.
Yes.
So I think just as you know, are seeking to know more about the mental health process in our community, I think having you on their board will help them understand from the criminal side
Right.
what conflicts there may be with them seeking treatment prior to sentencing or even their whole case being heard.
Right.
So I think that it is definitely a good fit for you and that mental health board. So that's,
One other thing. Which one is Carrie running for? Is there
yeah.
a particular one?
So there's two openings. One must be a primary or secondary consumer. Do you qualify as the secondary consumer? Or just a general?
I think it was just general.
Some of my clients might.
My clients might, but I think it was just general.
Emma? Okay. Was that your understanding, Michael? Emma? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So what's the
I'll
committee's
make a
pleasure?
motion. We move this on to the full board. Carrie.
Okay, it's been moved and supported, moved by Smelker, support by Gibson, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Carrie Selleck to serve on the Berry County Community Mental Health Authority Board for a 3-year term that begins on April 1st, 2019 and expires on March 31st, 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Alrighty, thank you, Carrie. Next on our agenda is the interview for the Planning Commission, Mr. John LaForge.
Good morning.
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 Why don't you take a few minutes to introduce yourself to the board, and then we will start with questions from Mr. Geiger.
My name's John LaForge, as you said. I grew up in the Lansing area, retired from General Motors. I've lived in Delton area for almost 12 years now. I'm also board of directors for Great Lakes Energy, so if any of you have Great Lakes as your power, I'm your board director. I'm up for re-election this year, but that's a whole different story. But what I'd really like to say is that anybody that wants to, make sure you get on and sign up for the broadband, because that's one of the things that Great Lakes Energy is going to be coming with, and I'm trying to push for them to come to the south next year when they start their programs. And the more people we can get signed up that show interest, it's going to be a boon for all of the people that are in Great Lakes Energy and in the area. I'm retired, like I said, from GM. I also was a business owner. I was a licensed builder for a while, and I also had an auto repair shop. And I live on a lake here in town, and that's, in Dalton, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Commissioner Geiger.
Thank you for applying. First question is, how did you find out about this opening?
In the paper, actually, in community paper, I saw it. And being on the board, it's given me some opportunity to be involved in the community, but I've always done a lot of stuff in the communities wherever we've lived at. I don't know if you're familiar with Civitan, but it's a service organization that mostly deals with physically handicapped kids. So when you see the huggers at the Special Olympics, most of those are Civitan people. And we don't do a lot of money. Most of our stuff's hands-on, so.
The Planning Commission is a kind of quasi-judicial board where the decisions have to be founded in the zoning code. So what's your position on zoning? Some people say that it takes away property rights. But, so what's your...
Well, here's my life. I've had the opportunity and the good fortune. I grew up we weren't very well-to-do growing up, but I've been fortunate enough in my life to be in a position where I'm very comfortable. And I do understand, and my background is everything from being poor to being well off. And because of the different aspects that I've had to go through in my life, I can look at things from a lot of different, perspectives. And I believe that when you make a decision about things, you have to make a decision based on what's best for the community. And if that zoning is best for the community, no matter what you do in any zoning, there's going to be people that are going to win and people that are going to lose. And first and foremost, you have to go by whatever the law says. And second of all, you have to do what's best for the community. And sometimes the people are going to be okay with that, and sometimes they're not. And that's just the way it's going to be.
Let's say that there was a planning commission decision where you were on the opposing end, that you were in the minority and the decision was made. How would you move forward with a project that you didn't initially support?
Okay. I think I'm on the board of a multi-million-dollar corporation. Everything in that boardroom is never 100%. Very, very few things. But when we leave the boardroom, we leave it, whatever that decision is, that's what it is. It's not a personal attack upon you. I may not agree with what's going on, but if the rest of the board decides that's what's going to happen, then as a board member, I have to support that.
Last question. The county has recently started a training program for new appointees, just a workshop. The structure of our citizen appointees and the expectations. If appointed, would you set aside some time to go to that training?
Yeah, I've just finished, because I've only been on the board of directors for 3 years. And I just finished the last of the 17 courses you have to take as a board director. So I'm very well.
Ours is only one.
Yeah. And but the problem is that you have to go all over the country to do them, because they have them at different places. So hopefully if they're all right here in town, it'd be great.
You could knock it out in a couple hours.
Yeah, okay.
Great. Well, thank you. I have no more.
Yeah.
Commissioner Connor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your answers. I really appreciate them. Thank you for applying. Let's go back to Ben's question. If you disagree with what the board is doing and a decision hasn't been made, how hard of a fighter are you?
Well, it depends on what the issue is. I mean, you have to pick your battles.
Right.
So I will tell you this. Again, just because of experience. About 3 months ago, I had the CEO of Great Lakes Energy come to me. And he says, John, he goes, I don't always agree with the things that you say and do in the boardroom. But I know that no matter what you do, you have the members' best interests at heart. And that's all I can give you that for an answer. Whatever I think is the best thing to happen, I'll fight for it.
Oh, and you've been on that board for 3 years?
3 years.
Okay. Okay. I'm satisfied. Thank you very much for your application.
Good morning, John.
Morning.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
I interrupted John's day when I was wandering around Hope Township last summer, and it was a very engaging conversation to learn about Great Lakes Energy, some of the programs with TrueStream that they're doing and trying to bring down here. So I don't really have any questions because Ben covered most of the things I was thinking about in there. But I know board experience is important as far as working with people, especially in some contentious situations. I think you would be a good advocate from your position, from your standpoint, maybe bringing a different set of eyes to that board, having your background in energy and especially in broadband, which is an area that we're really working on in Barry County right now. So I think you might be able to guide and help them in some of those things as well. So I appreciate your application and your interest in this. And from my previous conversation, I know you'd be a good fit for that board. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Parker.
Hi, John.
Morning.
Thanks for applying.
Thank you.
I love the idea that you've had a building background, too. That comes in real handy sometimes for other planning commissioners, too. The other thing that I appreciate, too, is the fact that I'm representative of the board for broadband. So I probably will want to talk to you further about some other things, not today, but another day. So Have you been to you've been to any of the meetings at all?
I have not, and that's a question I have, is that when are the meetings?
Fourth Monday,
Okay, that's all I need to know.
7 p.m.
Is that a problem for you to
No.
make? Okay.
My board meetings are on Wednesday before the fourth Thursday of every month, and they're in Boyne City, so, I just wanted to make sure I'd be able to make it to both meetings. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. I just thank you for applying and do your best.
Mr. Gibson?
I have no questions. Thanks for applying.
You're welcome.
I have the same sentiments, so everybody's been quite thorough on the question, so thank you for applying.
I appreciate bringing your wealth of experience to Berry County's boards and commissions. We so much appreciate qualified candidates or volunteers to work on our committees. So thank you very much.
I would make a motion that we send this to the full board.
Second.
Moved by Gibson, second by Parker. To appoint, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint John LaForge to serve on the Berry County Planning Commission for a 3-year term that begins on 5/1/19 and expires on April 30, 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All righty, next on our agenda, or do we need to take a break? All righty,
Roll on.
okay. There it is. Interviews for the Commission on Aging. Kathy Gramsey. Did I say it right?
You did.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You are a familiar face, but please take a few minutes to introduce yourself to the board and explain why you'd like to be part of the Commission on Aging.
I am Kathy Young Ramsey. I am originally from Hastings, born and raised. Sometimes people come in here and brag about their 50-year-old Hastings roots. I can brag about Hastings roots back to 1833. So it's an old Hastings family on my mother's side. I have done many, many things. I've been a nurse. I've been an aircraft mechanic. I've worked really, really unpleasant retail jobs. I've gone to college. I've gone to graduate school. I've raised children. I've been a housewife. I can make soap. Overall, I've been able to do and generally do well pretty much anything I've ever set my mind to doing. Did I leave out coding? I can code.
I think you left that out, but thank you. Commission on Aging Commissioner Connor.
Thank you. Hi, Kathy. I don't think I've ever seen you at any of the COA meetings. Have you ever been there?
I have not. I have been to the COA, though. For a while, I was playing euchre with my husband there every Wednesday. That was very enjoyable. And that was my first clue as to the condition of the facilities, shall we say.
So, okay. What do you hope to bring to that board? I know there is lots of stuff right now out there, and I know we've got to looking at big projects.
First, I am a senior citizen, so a potential consumer of their offerings. I have neighbors and friends who use some of their offerings. My years as a nurse, I mostly worked in nursing homes, and so I have an understanding of the type of services that will help keep people in their homes for as long as possible, living independent and meaningful lives for as long as possible. And that is also what we need to, I lost my train of thought. It's what we need to do to strengthen the community, because senior citizens are the most rapidly growing demographic in the county. And it's what we need to do to keep the expenses down. Keeping people in their home is far less expensive than having to put people in facilities. Although eventually there are some individuals who inevitably will need 24-hour nursing care. But most people only need lesser degrees of help, and that's what the COA specializes in.
Have you ever sat on a board?
No, I have not.
So would you be willing to take the county training?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you know what the number one problem is, danger, concern for the elderly is?
Balls.
No, that's not it, but.
Depression?
No, there's two other candidates. I'm not saying.
All right.
But thank you so very much for applying.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gibson.
Are you familiar with all the programs up there?
I am not. I only know some of them. And I hope to learn about the rest of them because that's valuable knowledge.
You don't have any ideas for any new programs at this point, then?
I couldn't possibly if I don't already know what they offer.
Okay. Well, thanks for applying.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, and reading through your experiences, you had referenced budgeting multi-million dollars.
Yes.
Can you expound upon that just a little bit?
Yes, one of my jobs when I was in the Air Force was a wing level job where I was put in charge of the chemical warfare defense equipment for every military airlift command asset in the Pacific, which included the Philippine Islands and all that. There were 23 individual unit chemical warfare defense equipment managers that I had to work with. And the Air Force, 23rd Air Force, would give me a budget, and then I had to divide that among the 23 different units based on who needed something the most and trying to bring them to a level of parity and preparedness.
And so you like numbers, or you work well with numbers?
Yes.
Okay, because that's always a skill set that's good for any board to have someone, you know, a little bit more in the oversight to help out with that as well. And I see you also have had some experience working in nursing homes, so you've got some familiarity with this. Okay. I don't have any further questions. Vivian covered most of them, so thank you.
Commissioner Schmelker.
Catherine, when you was a nurse, was you know that?
No, I was an LPN, and I was also took the psychiatric nursing portion of the RN course, but I just was burned out on school at that point.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Commissioner Parker.
Thank you for applying, and I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Geiger.
Thank you for applying, and thank you for your interest in serving in Perry County. You've been part of our family up here in the mezzanine. Anybody that's attended a few meetings up here is a special part of the county, so thank you for your attendance. What should the goal of the COA be?
As I've already said, to provide services that are going to assist the people who live in the county that are older to live meaningful, dignified lives in their homes for as long as possible.
Okay.
Whatever services they might need. One of my neighbors uses the list that the COA has of handymen that give special discount cost to low-income seniors for odd jobs around their homes. That type of.
So you see it as just as much outreach as a center for social activity?
Yeah.
Second question, how would you go about resolving conflict on a board? You indicated you haven't served on a board, which is perfectly all right. But how would you work to implement a decision that you might not agree with?
I spent 12 years in the Air Force, Ben. If you think I never had to implement decisions I didn't agree with.
Fair enough. I don't have any more questions.
I don't have any questions either because my cohorts are very good at asking the important ones. So thank you. Next on our agenda is Gerald Schmedeke. Did I say that right? You did. Thank you.
lot of vowels in there, and it usually complicates things.
It looks a little German, so
Yeah, a
I
little bit,
sometimes have
yes.
an advantage.
Good morning.
Good morning. So take a few minutes to introduce yourself to our board. I don't think you've been here in the last couple of years, so
I have not. I
floor is yours.
moved to Hastings approximately 6 years ago. We live in Rutland Township. We've been involved in a number of activities within the community and find that this position for which I've applied sort of falls in line with what I am and what the community is becoming. We are, I think, a community with an aging population, which is not uncommon in all of the country. And there are services that should be made available to stabilize and aid the elderly to proceed with their lives in their most comfortable setting. And obviously, as previously been stated, that's at home. My background, my working life was the delivery of services. I worked for a state agency, and we addressed many issues from birth to death, and I have, I think, vast experience in the delivery of services to both individuals and groups, and I feel that that experience will help to qualify me to understand that addressed by the Commission on Aging.
Thank you. Commissioner Connor?
Thank you. Thanks, Jerry, for applying for this position. I know that you have a big background on boards, and would you be willing to take the training that the county offers? It's at the community foundation.
Right. My feeling is that generally there is something that can be taken away from anything, and so yes.
Okay.
As long, you know, that participation puts you on a beginning of an equal standing with anyone else who might serve that has taken the training, so I have no problem with it.
Have you utilized any services up at have you ever been up there to a board meeting or?
Not recently. We did attend a number of meetings, I think 5 or 6 when we first came.
Okay.
Basically to understand what was available. Most of it didn't appeal to us at that time, and so we didn't continue attendance there, but I have a basic understanding, I think, of the delivery of services and the intent of the organization, but certainly not a full understanding of everything that they hope to accomplish.
We have some big things facing the COA with the structure that they're currently in and what we're going to do to get them a new facility or a different facility, we'll say that. And do you know what the number one problem is that faces seniors?
Well, I don't think there is a number one problem. I think that we're all individuals, and consequently, we all have needs of, you know, of an individual sort. Basically, mobility is an important issue. The measure of competence that others apply and then end up taking advantage quite often of seniors is an issue. Information probably is one of the larger ones. And I think that we can pick and choose, but each one of us is an individual, and each one of us has special particular needs, and so it's difficult to say this is it for any individual.
Because our third candidate can't be here today, the biggest thing that's facing seniors is isolation, and that's hard to believe, but it is isolation.
Well, because I said mobility.
Right.
That, you know, we
Or any.
probably generally,
Yep.
the thing that I always comment about is, you know, what is that person out there doing getting into a car when he can barely walk? And that is what it's about. And unfortunately, we need to bring services to people and bring people out of their isolation so that we can fully, you know, reward them for their years of service, I think.
So, thank you very much for applying.
Commissioner Gibson.
I have no questions. Thanks for applying.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So with your previous board experience, what was your latest board experience and what have you been involved with?
Parks and Recreation here, and I served on various boards and commissions within the township as well.
Okay. And I know you're from Rutland Township, so I've seen you around there. Good experiences as far as working with those boards, interacting with that, because board experience is important moving forward. Some of those experiences can be both good, bad, whatever the case is, so.
Well, an interesting question, to which you probably already have the answer. There are, well, a position that was expressed to me when I was appointed to one board by this commission a few years ago. A gentleman said to me, I want you to understand, this was before the meeting. He called and asked would I have a meeting with him before the meeting. And he said to me, now I want you to understand one thing. We appreciate it if you would come to the first 10 or 12 meetings monthly, that was a year, and observe and absorb and get to understand where we're headed. And then after that, you can become involved. It doesn't work that way for me. Okay? I believe that when, if appointed, you have to become active. And no, we're not always going to agree, but hopefully, over time, we will be able to reach consensus. And I think that that's the most important thing to me, is that when I sit down with a group of people, I don't expect you to agree with me. And I'm not going to demand that you agree with me. And I hope that you will understand that I have a position, just like you do. And hopefully, we'll be able to make the best possible decision to serve the broadest group of people or aspect that we're looking at. And I think that attempting to achieve consensus overrides all of those petty personal conflicts that a person might have. Because you're giving up something and you're expecting that everyone that you're dealing with at that point is going to make a move towards concession as well. And so I think that we do have to vote, because that's an expectation of our laws within the state. Any public commission or body has to make a public vote. And I expected in a couple of the commissions that I served on that we would follow those rules. And there was a certain resentment to that too. So the law is the law, and our obligations exist, and there are certain charges, and that's why you're having the training, so that people will understand that. And I think that any issue can be resolved if you work at it.
Yeah, it's just, all these boards are volunteers. We appreciate your application, especially with your experience on boards, because you know how these things work a little, probably more so than some other folks that are involved with it, so you have an expectation at least. But then you also realize that teamwork is important to build that consensus, in those boards. So appreciate your application. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smelker.
I have no questions, Jerry. I've known you for some time. And I was going to ask the same thing that David asked you, so thank you for applying.
Well,
Commissioner Geiger.
I have no questions. Thank you for your application.
And bringing up the rear, Commissioner Parker.
Yeah, I thought the biggest problem with older people is that they're getting older. So. But
That's a given.
Jerry and I served on the Parks and Rec. We've had discussions on things, and I think he knows where I stand on those kind of things pretty clearly. And I think team effort is very important. I'm glad to hear that we're still on that same wavelength. And I think Jerry can kind of bring some things to the table that he's very good with following up on things. We hired him, we asked him to find a person to mow our fields and trail and everything else, and that had to do with Parks and Rec, and man, he did a thorough job. He was even out there watching to see how high the grass was cut, I think. So he followed up real well with that, and I think he could be an asset to the board there. So.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for applying. I do not have any further questions from you because they do such a good job. It just would be redundant. So we will be making a decision soon about a recommendation to the board.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Looking for the name. Ms. Nellie Shepherd is not able to be with us this morning. She had some family issues to take care of out of state. She has rescheduled her appointment for an interview on May 7th. So what is the committee's pleasure? Would you like to hold off, or would you like to make 2 appointments?
I would just soon hold off until we talk to Nellie and then make them all at once.
Don't we have 3 open seats?
Yep.
We have,
It says 3 positions.
yeah, we have 3 3-year terms and 1 for the remainder of a 3-year term that will expire the end of the year.
I would like to move on. The next COA meeting is next Tuesday.
Haven't heard a motion.
I would make a motion that we appoint Gerald Schmidtke to a 3-year term that begins on 1/1/19 and expires on 12/31/21. And I would move that we approve, drawing a blank here, sorry about that.
I feel your pain.
Catherine. To Gramsci, to serve for the commission for the remainder of a 3-year term that began on 1/1/17 and expires on 12/31/19.
Ask for a roll call vote.
Okay. I have the, all right. I don't have a second.
So you get 2 motions.
And I have 2 motions. So,
I made it as one.
Okay.
so we'll deal with it as one. So the motion before the board is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Gerald Schmedeke to serve on the Berry County Commission on Aging for a 3-year term that begins January 1st, 2019 and expires on December 31st, 2021. And to appoint Catherine Gramsci to serve on the Berry County Commission on Aging Board for the remainder of a 3-year term that begins on January 1st, 2017 and expires on December 31st, 2019. Was that correct? Mm-hmm. All those actually, let's do a roll call vote.
This is to move it on to the full board, right?
Move it to the full board.
Who's the 4th?
Jackson.
Connor.
Yes.
Geiger.
No.
Gibson.
No.
Jackson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Smelker.
Yes.
Wayne.
Yes. The item's been approved. I think I need a break just as bad as everybody else does. And since Ms. Shepherd's not here, we have a break built into the schedule. Let's be back at 9:55.
Okay.